Hello, everyone. So in this video, we will explain an important economic policy, which is called fiscal policy. So let's see in this video, what do we mean by a fiscal policy? As you can see here from the first slide, every economy has potential level of GDP it can attain. And GDP is stable when it remains or close to full employment. And the Canadian model predicts that if GDP of the economy moves away from this potential GDP, either right or left, then the economy is said to be slumping into a recession. So in a previous video, I explained what do you mean by recession, what do you mean by expansion. I explained the different phases of business cycle. So whenever there is a recession, so we should expect that many people lost their jobs, the unemployment is high, the consumption level went down, the level of investment also went down. Many factors closed down. So typically, whenever there's a recession, the market is bad. So according to the Canadian model, there's no automatic tendency of self-correction, which means so whenever the market is bad, it's not going to correct itself. What does mean? This means there should be some kind of outside stimulus is needed to shift the aggregate expenditure upward. So whenever the market is bad, so whenever the market is not in the equilibrium state, whenever the market starts to enter into recession stage, so this means, according to the Canadian model, there's no automatic corrections, there's no self-correction. This means an action has to be taken to increase the GDP. But the question is, what kind of outside stimulus? I want to remind you of the formula of GDP. Again, I want to say it one more time here in this video. So GDP equal consumption plus investment plus government spending plus export minus import. So think about this. So whenever the market is bad, whenever there is a recession, so as I said, many people lost their jobs. Consumers or households starts to lower the consumption because the future is uncertain and their income is less. So that's why we should expect that the consumption expenditure will go down. At the same time, from the business side, so many business owners lose their jobs. Also, like a small business will be affected the most. And we saw after the pandemic, like many small business they shut down after the pandemic. So especially look about the restaurants. So when they stopped the in-dining restaurants, so the restaurants have been affected the most by the pandemic. So whenever there's a recession in the market, we should expect that also the aggregate private domestic investment will be declined. So here's the problem. So whenever there's a recession, we should expect that GDP will decline. This is what do I mean by this. So that's why there should be some kind of outside stimulus to shift the aggregate expenditure. And I said before, what I mean by aggregate expenditure is the GDP. So aggregate expenditure is the same as GDP. But the question is, what kind of outside stimulus? Let's see what I'm writing here. So it would be great if private capital investment spending could be relied upon for the needed stimulus. Here I'm talking about the investment. I'm talking about this part of the GDP formula. It would be awesome if this time of stimulus comes from the private sector, from the private domestic investment. But think about it. So in the recession, like how people can invest more. So if I have a business and the market is bad, I will be concerned to invest my money in this time. So that's why, according to Keynes, and he's one of the greatest economy, he thinks that if this is the case and if the market is bad, so this is the perfect time that the federal government must step in and play a role in stabilizing the economy. And this is what do we mean by fiscal policy. So let me say it in a simple way. So the fiscal policy is what? Is an outside stimulus. It's done by the federal government whenever the market is bad, whenever there's a recession. So consequently, the aggregate consumption will be declined. The aggregate investment also will be declined. That's why this is the ideal time for the federal government to step in and take an action and provide this type of outside stimulus to stabilize the economy and boost the GDP. So this is the meaning of a fiscal policy. So any action, fiscal policy is any action taken by the federal government, especially during the time of recession, to boost the economy or to increase the GDP. Okay, so here there is a very important act which in 1946 is called the Full Employment Act of 1946. Simply, this act applies what I said. So according to this act, so it's the government can take an action to stimulate the economy out of recession, and this action is called a fiscal policy, which is our topic in this video. Okay, so let's see this. So this is maybe the formal definition of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy involves any changes in federal purchases and taxes that are intended to achieve a macroeconomic policy objectives. So this is what we mean by a fiscal policy. Thank you and see you in the next video.